I'm going to talk to you about writing secure Node code. Yeah, as I've already been introduced, I can probably skip this slide, but yep, I love open source. And I have to start this talk by saying NPM is awesome, because there's a reason why I say NPM is awesome. Well, the reason is because, as most of you apparently use NPM every day, you know how valuable it is. And we've had loads of stats about NPM already, so I feel like we've had stats overload, but I like this one, 1 billion downloads per week. I mean, that's use. That's a lot of use. So, you know, it's one thing to have a lot of packages, but how often are they being used? Here we've got a very active community. Do you know which dependencies you have? Well, I hope that most of you who are using NPM would know which dependencies you have. If you don't, just look in your package.json. But I think it was mentioned earlier, it's not just the packages that you're directly pulling in. This is Express, by the way. And it just shows the graph of like what is being depended upon. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of dependencies that its dependencies rely on. I like to call them sub-dependencies. I don't know what the actual proper term is, but sub-dependency seems clear. There's 42 nodes there, and I like to also look at all the faces. Those are the people who've worked on stuff. I have a laser, I should use it. There we go, maintainers. So you can see that there's a lot of different people contributing to the code base. So as I said, NPM is awesome, but every dependency is a potential security risk. You don't know whether there is a vulnerability in there necessarily. How much security expertise has the author of that package had? And did they go through any security testing? We talk a lot about unit tests and integration tests, but we probably don't talk as much as we should about security tests. Are there any known vulnerabilities? Now, maybe some of you will look at the Issues tab when you're choosing a new dependency and try and get a good idea of the health of this dependency, but how many times do you revisit and go back to dependencies you maybe pulled in 6 months ago and see if anything's come up since then? Interestingly, 14% of dependencies do carry known vulnerabilities, and our users, 76% of them have found vulnerabilities in their apps. So this is a very real problem. So there's two questions that you might be asking. How do I protect myself? And can I learn from these vulnerabilities? So I'm going to do a bit of live coding now to be a hacker, basically. So I've got this app here called Goof, and it's a super vulnerable to-do list application. This is obviously a bit of a straw man. This is not a real-life example, but the packages that you'll see that it pulls in are commonly used packages that you might well have in your code bases. So here's Goof, and as you can see, it's a pretty standard to-do list application. You can do things like buy milk. It's kind of the hello world of single-page apps. If I have a look here on, this is Snick, I can test my GitHub repository. So I've already logged in with GitHub, and if I go down here to Goof, you can see that it's already found out there were 4 high vulnerabilities. If I monitor it, and have a look inside, we can see here some of these vulnerabilities. I'm going to have a look at this one here, ST. So ST is for serving up static files. It was written by, in fact, I can bring up the person's name. Anyone going to help me out here? No. All right, it's written by somebody who was very active in Node.js. So let's go and have a look. Here we go, Isaacs. Yeah. Anyway, so if I have a look here in the command line, so, well, first of all, if I go to the About page, so this is a static page that's being served off, about.html. What do you think is going to happen then if I go to .. This is what hackers do, by the way. They go to .. What's going to happen? Hands up. Anyone? See the files? Luckily for us, we just go back to the home page. That's cool. But actually, this wasn't a fair test, because Chrome is clever enough to do directory traversal before it makes the request. So all it's going to do is make the request to the home page. That's why we have to go into our terminal here. So I've got one I prepared earlier. I'm just going to curl. So first of all, there's the About page. Pretty cool. We got the HTML. That's what we expected. So again, .. and we got the home page. That's fine. That's what we hoped would happen. It's exactly the same. But if we have a look here at the vulnerability in more detail, you can see here there's something about %2e. Now, %2e is the same as a dot, but it's URL encoded. So we're going to do the same thing again now, but replace .. with %2e. Now what's going to happen? Any guesses? All right. We got to the code base. So now we're actually looking at the code, which we weren't actually intending to expose via curl. The crazy thing is if I put a few more on here, I mean, what's going to happen now? I just put a load more .. We just got into our computer via curl. And now we can do something like this. So you can see how this might not be something that you want on production servers. Luckily on Mac, I have been told that there's nothing too vulnerable inside of the etc password. But what have you got on your server? Maybe, I don't know, AWS access token, or you don't know what's lying around, but you probably don't want people to know that much about what's running on your server. So that's ST. Now let's have a look at marked. Who here's used marked? It's a markdown parser. Oh, not that many. Yeah, a few hands. I've used it, and it's got a nice feature here, sanitize true. If you're using it with public inputs, things like a blog or a forum where you're accepting user input, then you should definitely turn sanitize on. And what it's supposed to do is make sure that, so if we go back to our to-do app, I can enter some markdown, and it will render as markdown, and that's pretty cool. And with that, you can put in a link. So you might want to remind yourself when you get home, I want to click on this link. That seems like a nice feature. So what's going to happen if I do this? JavaScript alert 1. Oh, I've lost it. There we go. Well, it managed to strip it out. This is what sanitize is doing. It's finding something that looks like it's not meant to be there, and it's not allowing us to do it. So that worked. Now, we're not going to use URL encoding, but we're going to use HTTP entities, which are very similar. They're just another way to encode strings. So this is the equivalent to JavaScript alert 1. What's going to happen now that I've encoded it? It even caught it that time. Interestingly, the parser does something slightly different. There was that rogue bracket on the last one, but it's catching it. We're not vulnerable. This is interesting. So this is what I just did. This was the previous one. Now I'm going to put the word this in here. Now this is not a valid HTTP entity, but the browser is generous. It wants to understand what you wanted it to do. And so it's going to sort of coerce this into an HTML entity. It's like, OK, you forgot the semicolon. We'll forgive you. So we got a link. And when I click it, we get an alert. So, I mean, that's all well and good. It's just an alert. But JavaScript has access to your cookies. It has access to anything pretty much that the user has access to. So it's very easy to impersonate a user, take over their session. Now you're in as them. What do you want to do? Maybe, I don't know, put them on the premium tier of the billing plan. I don't know. Maybe change their email address to your email address. I don't know what you want to do. So yeah, that's a problem. And the final thing that I'm going to show you today is one that I think a few more of you might have used. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to show you. With this marked one, there is no new version of marked available yet that fixes that bug. So the only remediation at the moment is to patch it. So Snick has written a bunch of patches. You can go and have a look at them. They're on an open source GitHub repository. And you can contribute if you want to. But the key thing is you can see what the patch is actually going to do to your code. It's just a diff of lines that are going to be changed. And we try and do the least that we can do to cover up that vulnerability. But yeah, going back to Mongoose. So Mongoose is for accessing MongoDB. Who here has used Mongoose? Right. I'd say probably more than half of you have used this library. So yeah, there's a potential vulnerability here, and I'm going to go and have a look in a bit more detail here. So the issue here actually relates to something quite low level inside of Node. There's a buffer, and a buffer's good for sending binary data. You can initialize it of one of two ways. You can either initialize it with a number or a string. If you initialize it with a number, what you're saying is, I want uninitialized memory, please, and give me a length of memory, like I need 100 bytes. If you initialize it with a string, you say, give me a buffer and set the value to this thing. So in this case, this would be value of 100. So that seems all well and good. Just like we just used our app here in the UI, I'm now going to use HTTP to curl, or yes, so I'm using HTTP because it's a little cleaner to read. But I'm going to buy some beer because I haven't had enough free beer at this event today. So let's send that up. And if I refresh the page, we just added something via the terminal. Cool. So we're not just stuck with doing content equals as sort of HTTP entities here. HTTP encoding. Form encoding, that's what I'm trying to say. We can also send JSON because we're running a Node server and we've enabled that feature, as I'm sure a lot of you have on your Express servers. So what's going to happen here when I send content : it's going to do the same thing as before and do fix the bike. There we go. Now I can change that, and instead of doing fix the bike, I can change that to a string saying 800. And that is just going to add the word 800. So what's going to happen now if I take out those quote marks? What do people think is going to happen if I send that same request but without the quote marks around it? I actually want to know what you think. And what does that look like? Right. So we just got back some gibberish. And I'm going to do that a few more times, and I'll show you why I'm doing this a few times in a second. Hopefully that's enough. So we got back a whole load of stuff, and it's easier to see it in the source. But we have got, sometimes we get exciting things back. There we go. There's a prototype. This could contain anything, and it's not shown clearest in the browser, but in the case of brevity, I'm not going to show you how to actually sort of convert this. But you could get, again, keys, user information, anything that's in memory. So whatever your server was just accessing and didn't reset the memory on, the reason why the buffer is able to be accessed in such a way, because it is a big vulnerability, is speed. Like if you don't have to zero out all of that memory, it's quicker. But this is not how you were meant to use it. So yeah, I mean, that's something to be aware of. So the last thing I'm going to show you, like any good citizen, is how to fix all of these things. If you're using Snook, and this is a big plug, by the way, so I apologize, but I'm going to do it anyway, you can click the Fix Vulnerabilities button. So I'm yeah, it's easy. And what happens, it takes a little while, but it's going to create a pull request on GitHub, because I've already given it permission. Now we've got our pull request here. I can have a look at what the change includes. It's updated all of the Express modules to the latest, all the modules that had vulnerabilities to the later version that fixes the issue. And where it couldn't actually fix the issue, it's going to patch it. So, and the way that that actually works, which was something that Ashley mentioned earlier, is through a pre-publish script that it adds in there. So now every time you run npm install, it's going to install and then patch your modules. So they're now running secure. So going back to my talk. So yeah, that's pretty amazing, right? A single button to fix your vulnerabilities. That's what people want. So I have to be a good citizen here. Please do not use the information I just showed to you to hack people's websites. This was given in good faith, and I'm hoping that you're better than that. It's actually illegal to do that. You can hack your own websites. But how do you protect yourself, and what can you learn? Well, there are some things that you can do to protect yourself. You can address known vulnerabilities by finding them fixing them either by upgrading where there's a newer version available or patching them if there's no upgrade available. Then you need to prevent adding new dependencies that suffer from vulnerabilities over time because code bases change, but also respond quickly to vulnerabilities that are found because a vulnerability can be found at any point in time. And what can you learn? Well, the things that we learned today, and this is obviously not an exhaustive list, but you should consider encodings. So particularly we looked at HTML and URL encoding as being potential places that people can get in. It's often easier to whitelist instead of blacklist when you're coming to encodings. So make a short list of the things that you want to accept rather than a long list of everything that might lead to some sort of code execution. Beware of JSON type manipulations because as we saw, it can allow you to initialize a buffer with integers, which could get access to your memory. So as I said, NPM is awesome, but please enjoy responsibly. Thank you.